Minister, thanks. I'm actually not going to speak on this bill, but actually I would prefer to flag some issues in relation to general planning, which again I want to put on the record of the House. And I would take this opportunity to do that. I know you've already intimated, our Minister O'Brien has intimated further amendments to come on the bill that's being discussed here today, so we will get a chance to revisit that. Minister, I want to highlight again the obvious need for affordable housing, whether the private sector consumers or state-supported schemes. The present cost trajectory and the affordability index is rising all the while, and state spending is required more and more to supplement costs that are running away. Minister, have you any plans whatsoever to take a look at the tax take that is taken on new housing in this country, in terms of the VAT, in terms of the stamp duty, in terms of the development fees? I think the last figure I have seen that this is somewhere close to 40% on a new house built. And also the main blocks that are occurring in the construction process at the moment, particularly for housing development, which is essentially two state quangos, one Irish Water and the other ESB. Now, I have spoken to a number of developers who are highlighting these as significant problems in terms of getting schemes finished, getting the certs issued and being able to pass these on to the end user. So I would ask you to have a look at this, Minister. Also, the planning regulator, having created a series of recommendations to deliver high density in both urban and rural settings, why will he not make himself available to local authority members to discuss their present development of development plans? Having given the regulations, and we don't really know whether they have a statutory footing or not, or whether they are just a recommendation, surely it's incumbent on the regulator to make himself available to local authority members so that they are fully guided on what he is trying to deliver, but also in terms of sustainable strategic planning at local authority level. The judicial review process, which has been referenced here already, Minister, is now farcical. Many are based around strategic housing developments, and out of 34 judicial processes taken to date, government has lost 30. They've conceded at 1. And 3 have not yet been heard, not to mind that there is a plethora of cases coming behind. The legal cost to the state in respect of judicial reviews is horrendous, and yet the Department continues to legally fight these cases where, based on the present trajectory, they have an almost 100% failure rate in upholding their decision. How long more are we going to continue with this, Minister, of putting cost onto the state where these judicial reviews are obviously showing significant problems with the planning process? Getting back to Irish Water, Minister, I would claim that this quango is now almost dysfunctional in terms of integrating with new planning schemes. I'm aware where in Waterford, in my own area of Waterford, where the servicing of sites and connection fees, where Irish Water have asked developers €30,000 for connection to wastewater and €5,000 for connection to water per house. Now, Minister, I'm sure you're aware the South East region is probably at this stage the most disadvantaged in the country. And where are buyers supposed to find €35,000 just to connect to water? And then you can add the ESB to that, another state quango that is throttling investment development, and again adding significant cost to private house building and to public house building. And again, because of the delays in connections and the issuing of certs, this is causing many developers to suffer increased costs in tranche funding. In other words, in housing funding before they can pass it over to the consumer. And again, Minister, I'd ask you and your department, please, to start looking at this in a serious way. We have a crippling lack of rental accommodation across the country, which is now increasing the size of homeless for many. Government must prioritise, in my opinion, the delivery of cost rental, but not just in large cities. This needs to be done for rural applications also. Our affordable purchase schemes need to be made available in coastal towns, such as my own area of Dunmore East and Tramore, where local property prices now are being driven way beyond the means of young people to get on the property ladder in those areas. That is not acceptable to me. That is eradicating community into the future. Also, Minister, I see no clear strategy to expedite vacant housing, which we in the regional group brought a motion to this House on as an interim accommodation measure. In Waterford, the local authority has been very successful in rolling out a repair and lease programme, which offers property owners the opportunity to access build finance under a scheme, and where the authority then rents the renovated property for a period of 20 years or so. I think Waterford accounted for nearly 55% of the total houses delivered under the scheme in the past year. Why is this not being delivered out to our large urban centres, Minister, where it could add significantly to the capacity of housing stock? Beyond that, public sector procurement, Minister, contracts now need to be looked at and modified. The fixed cost model with 180 days price guarantee is no longer suitable to the dynamic market trends. And that is why you are getting tenders coming back unanswered. And what are we doing? We're putting them back out to the market again as if something has radically changed with the same tender constrictions as well. This is really ABC, Minister. And why can we not look at it and do something about it? Again, I would also highlight the amount of oversight, regulation and bureaucracy now in terms of delivering public sector contract bills, which is retarding output and driving up finished cost prices. Even for development on public lands, the time taken to expedite build and receive settlement payment is too long and too costly. In my own area, I have seen private sector housing delivered in half the time of public sector bills. Who is paying for these delays, Minister? Only the state and hard-pressed taxpayers. And ultimately, it is again falling back on the exchequer to support cost prices with first-time incentives, etc. Other parties are talking about a constitutional change in the right of housing, Minister, and whenever it will be brought, it will be meaningless without the ability of the state to deliver it. And the state continues to adopt a position of a detached onlooker to the issues and costs, many of which they are driving, and they appear to have no appetite to remodel these, Minister. And I believe it's a significant flaw in government policy. The recent report outlining the significant fall in house ownership in the 25 to 35-year-olds is now a significant clarion call for our future economy and the welfare of those who are welded to rental opportunity only. It is a fact that these are the most productive demographic sectors who now face significant disadvantage in terms of our rampant cost escalation in the general construction sector, but also in our failure to regulate that cost base or to, in any significant way, remove some of the burdens that we are placing on hard-pressed families that we should be trying to ameliorate as soon as possible. So in conclusion, Minister, in terms of the bill that's here today, as I say, we'll get a chance to look at that. I have far more pressing concerns in terms of the development of policy, in terms of planning. I've outlined areas there which I believe government could, if it wished, take significant actions towards in trying to help those trying to get onto the property ladder and trying to help those, as I say, who are welded into rental accommodation and will be for the rest of their lives, who could get opportunity to buy a house if you would seriously have a look at it. But I wait to see what actions you will take.